May 24th, 2024. A remotely operated vehicle descends through 900 meters of black water in the South China Sea, off the Philippine island of Luzon. Its lights cut a narrow cone through the dark. And then, on the ocean floor, something appears that hasn't been seen by human eyes in 80 years. A submarine, standing perfectly upright on its keel, hull intact, deck gun still in place, conning tower still pointed at the surface as if waiting for the order to rise. USS Harder, SS-257, the deadliest American submarine of World War II. Lost on August 24th, 1944 with 79 men aboard, every one of them still inside. Her commanding officer was Commander Samuel David Dealey, 37 years old, born in Dallas, Texas. A quiet man with wire-rimmed glasses who looked more like a librarian than a killer. But the Japanese knew exactly who he was. They called the submarine the Destroyer Killer. Dealey's specialty was a maneuver so reckless that most captains refused to attempt it even once. He would surface in front of an attacking destroyer, let it charge directly at him, then fire torpedoes straight down its throat at point-blank range, then crash dive underneath the sinking ship. He did this 5 times in 5 days, and it worked every time. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Because before Harder became the most feared submarine in the Pacific, before Dealey earned the Medal of Honor and 4 Navy Crosses, before 5 Japanese destroyers went to the bottom in less than a week, there was a day in Groton, Connecticut that almost nobody remembers. December 1st, 1941. The Electric Boat Company laid down the keel of a new Gato-class submarine. 6 days later, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The war found Harder before Harder even existed. The Gato class was the backbone of America's undersea fleet, 311 feet long, over 1,500 tons on the surface, nearly 2,400 submerged, 10 torpedo tubes, 6 forward, 4 aft, 24 torpedoes, a 4-inch deck gun, 2 diesel engines for surface running, 4 electric motors for underwater, maximum depth, 300 feet officially. In practice, crews pushed them deeper when depth charges started falling. Harder was one of 77 Gatos built during the war, but she would become the only one whose captains sank 5 destroyers. Dealey commissioned Harder on December 2nd, 1942, exactly 1 year after her keel was laid. He was her first captain. He would be her only captain. After shakedown on the East Coast and a near-fatal friendly fire incident with a Navy patrol bomber in the Caribbean, Dealey brought Harder through the Panama Canal and into the Pacific. Her first war patrol began in June 1943, off the coast of Japan. The results were mixed. She hit a seaplane transport that had to be beached, but several torpedoes ran erratically. The Mark 14 torpedo was notoriously unreliable in the early war. Dealey noted this in his patrol report without complaint. He would adapt. Patrols 2 and 3 sharpened the crew into a weapon. Off Honshu, Harder sank cargo ships and tankers, survived a depth charge attack that lasted 2 days and nearly drained the batteries. On Patrol 3, operating as part of a wolfpack, Dealey showed his growing aggression. He pressed attacks in shallow water, in shipping lanes, crawling with escorts, in conditions where other captains would have broken off. By the end of Patrol 3, Harder had sunk enough tonnage to be considered successful. But Dealey was not interested in tonnage. He was interested in warships. Patrol 4 changed everything. Assigned as a lifeguard submarine off Wolai Atoll, Harder received word of a downed Navy pilot trapped on a Japanese-held island. Dealey nosed the submarine against a coral reef, held position with both propellers, and sent a rubber boat through breaking surf under sniper fire to rescue Ensign John Galvin. Then, on April 13th, a Japanese destroyer spotted Harder and charged. Most captains would dive deep and run. Dealey waited at periscope depth, let the destroyer close to 900 yards, then fired a spread of torpedoes straight at its bow. The destroyer Ikazuchi sank in 5 minutes. Dealey had discovered something. Destroyers expected submarines to flee. When a submarine charged back, the geometry favored the submarine. The 5th War Patrol made Dealey a legend. Harder departed Fremantle, Australia on May 26, 1944, headed for the waters off Tawi-Tawi in the southern Philippines, where the Japanese combined fleet was concentrated. The mission was reconnaissance. What happened was slaughter. On June 6th, a Japanese destroyer detected Harder and moved in for the kill. Dealey waited at periscope depth. At 900 yards, he fired 3 torpedoes. 2 hit. The destroyer Minazuki broke apart and sank in 4 minutes, 1 down. The next evening, another destroyer came hunting. Same tactic. Dealey let it close to point-blank range, fired 3 torpedoes, crash-dived to 200 feet. The explosion of the destroyer Hayanami shook Harder so violently that the crew thought they had been hit. 2 down. On June 9th, Dealey surfaced near the entrance of Tawi-Tawi anchorage, 6 miles from the main Japanese fleet base. 2 destroyers were patrolling. He fired at both. One detonated so close that the concussion heeled Harder over. The second destroyer nosedived in a blinding explosion. 3 and 4 gone. Then came June 10th. A large Japanese task force appeared. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers. One of the escorting destroyers peeled off and charged straight at Harder. Dealey had every reason to dive deep and run. The task force could overwhelm a single submarine with depth charges. Instead, he turned the bow directly at the oncoming destroyer. At 1,500 yards, he fired 3 torpedoes, then ordered a crash dive. As Harder passed 80 feet beneath the surface, the destroyer exploded directly above her. The shockwave was devastating, but Harder survived. 5 Japanese destroyers sunk in 5 short-range torpedo attacks. The crew painted a 5th rising sun on the conning tower. The motto was already there: hit 'em harder. If you are watching this right now and you want to know what happened on Harder's 6th and final patrol, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Because what comes next is one of the most debated submarine losses of the entire Pacific War. 5 destroyers in 5 days, and the crew painted 5 rising suns on the conning tower to prove it. But the 6th patrol would be different. Was it bad luck? Was it fatigue? Or was it something that had been waiting for Sam Dealey since his very first down-the-throat shot? Back to the Pacific. Dealey brought Harder back to Australia as the most decorated submarine captain alive. Medal of Honor for the 5th Patrol. 4 Navy Crosses total. An Army Distinguished Service Cross, personally presented by General Douglas MacArthur. Some officers at command thought Dealey was tired, that 6 patrols were enough, that he was pushing his luck. Admiral Ralph Christie overruled them. On August 5th, 1944, Harder departed for her 6th war patrol, operating with Hake and Gato in a wolfpack nicknamed Sam's Sluggers. For 3 weeks, the wolfpack prowled the waters between the Philippines and Borneo, 3 submarines running on the surface at night, charging batteries, scanning the horizon with radar, diving at dawn. On August 21st, Harder and her partners ambushed a Japanese convoy. In a coordinated night attack, they sank 3 enemy frigates. Dealey personally finished 2 of them. The wolfpack was running out of torpedoes. Gato departed to resupply. Harder and Hake pressed on alone toward Dasol Bay on the west coast of Luzon. 2 boats, in waters that were becoming more dangerous by the day. On the morning of August 24th, 1944, 2 ships emerged from Dasol Bay. Harder and Hake were lying in wait. Hake's captain dove his boat immediately. Through his periscope, he watched Harder turn toward the escorts and begin an approach. At 0647, he saw Harder's periscope for the last time. At 0728, he heard 15 rapid depth charges in quick succession. Then oil, wood, and cork began rising to the surface. Harder never answered her radio. She never surfaced. 79 men. Gone. The ship that killed Harder was the Japanese coastal defense vessel CD-22. But patrolling alongside CD-22 that morning was another ship, PB-102. It was not originally Japanese. PB-102 was the former USS Stewart, DD-224, an American Clemson-class destroyer captured at the Surabaya dry dock in Java in March 1942. The Japanese found her sitting in a flooded dry dock, repaired her engines, repainted her hull, raised the rising sun flag, and turned her against her own navy. An American-built warship helped sink the most decorated American submarine of the war. The cruelest irony the Pacific could offer. The Navy declared Harder presumed lost in January 1945. Dealey was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. President Truman presented it to his wife, Edwina, on the White House lawn in November of that year. In 1953, the Navy named a destroyer escort USS Dealey in his honor, a fitting tribute for the man they called the Destroyer Killer. His uncle, George Bannerman Dealey, was the publisher of the Dallas Morning News. The plaza named after his uncle in downtown Dallas would become the site of President Kennedy's assassination 10 years later. For 80 years, Harder's resting place was unknown. Japanese records placed the sinking somewhere off Dasol Bay, but the exact coordinates were debated. The ocean floor in that area ranges from shallow coastal waters to the edge of the Manila Trench, over 14,000 feet deep. If Harder had slipped into the trench, she would never be found. 79 telegrams went out to 79 families across America, each one beginning with the same words. The Secretary of the Navy regrets to inform you. The families of those crewmen lived their entire lives not knowing where their fathers, brothers, and sons lay. Enter Tim Taylor, CEO of Tiburon Subsea and founder of the Lost 52 Project, a private effort to locate all 52 American submarines lost in World War II. Taylor is not a historian. He is not in the Navy. He is a deep-sea explorer who decided that these crews deserved to be found. By 2024, Taylor had already located 8 submarines, including USS Greyback, USS Stickleback, and USS Grunion. He had brought closure to the families of 452 servicemen. Harder was his 9th discovery, and it would be the most extraordinary. Taylor's team used advanced sonar scanning and autonomous underwater vehicles to survey the seabed off western Luzon. When the sonar image resolved, the shape was unmistakable. 311 feet of submarine, sitting perfectly upright on the ocean floor at 3,000 feet. Not on her side, not broken apart. Standing on her keel, as if she had simply settled gently to the bottom after her last dive. The conning tower was intact. The deck gun was still mounted. The only visible damage was behind the conning tower, where the depth charge had struck. The Naval History and Heritage Command confirmed the wreck in May 2024 using the Lost 52 Project's 4-dimensional photogrammetry data. Rear Admiral Samuel Cox, the command's director, said Harder was lost in the course of victory. We must not forget that victory has a price, as does freedom. The confirmation meant that the wreck site is now protected under United States law as a war grave. No salvage, no souvenir hunting, no disturbance of any kind. The site belongs to the 79 men who went down with her. They are still at their stations. They are still aboard their boat. In 6 patrols spanning 14 months, Samuel Dealey and the crew of USS Harder sank 16 confirmed ships totaling 54,000 tons. 5 of those ships were destroyers, the submarine's deadliest natural enemy. Dealey's tactic of firing torpedoes straight at an attacking destroyer was considered suicidal by most of the submarine service. He made it routine. He changed the way submarines fought warships. And he terrified the Japanese fleet to such a degree that they abandoned Tawi-Tawi earlier than planned, disrupting their entire defensive strategy for the Philippines campaign. There is a memorial at the Submarine Force Library and Museum in Groton, Connecticut, where Harder was built. Dealey's Medal of Honor is displayed there. Visitors walk past it without knowing the full story. How a quiet man from Dallas fired torpedoes down the throats of 5 destroyers in 5 days. How an American warship helped kill him. How he lay in the dark for 80 years before a man with a light sent a machine into the water and found him standing upright, 900 meters below the surface of the South China Sea. Of the 52 American submarines lost in World War II, the Lost 52 Project has now located 9. 43 remain missing. Somewhere on the floor of the Pacific, In the waters of Japan, the Philippines, the Marianas, the Solomons, they lie in the dark with their crews still aboard. Each wreck is a sealed tomb. Each represents a crew that went to war and never came home. If you know someone who served on a submarine in the Pacific, or if a member of your family was among the lost, the Naval History and Heritage Command maintains records of every crew, every patrol, and every name. The links are in the description. The Gato-class submarine, USS Harder, SS-257, sits upright on the floor of the South China Sea at a depth of 900 meters. Her crew of 79 remains aboard. Her captain's Medal of Honor is in a glass case in Groton, Connecticut, 3 feet from the spot where her keel was laid in 1941. Her motto, "Hit 'em harder," is painted on a conning tower that no living person can reach. She is where she fell. She is where she belongs. And now, 80 years after her last dive, we know exactly where that is. If there is a story from World War II that you want us to cover, write it in the comments. A battle, a ship, a person, a weapon that history forgot. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. We cover the forgotten, the classified, and the just discovered. The stories that didn't make it into the textbooks but shaped the world we live in. Like USS Harder, the destroyer killer, lost for 80 years at the bottom of the South China Sea, found standing at attention on her keel with her crew still aboard waiting to be remembered.